Hi guys and welcome to my review for the ZIIGAAT CINCOTRES. It says here on the box CINCOTRES, but actually on the IEM itself, let me just get it and show it to you. It actually says CINCOTRES, and CINCOTRES is what it actually makes sense. You see there? CINCOTRES. So, CINCOTRES, so 5-3. Doesn't really make sense, the CINCOTRES, but anyway, I guess it was just a typo. Anyway, this is my review for the CINCOTRES. The box is basically identical to the ZIIGAAT. In terms of its accessories, it's basically the same things. I'm not even going to bother with showing you this because we've seen it. We already know what the case looks like. Okay. The tips, I guess, are okay to a certain extent. I mean, I'm not using those tips. The cable, again, actually was a surprise. It's actually not a bad cable. It doesn't tangle up easily. I've got that in 4.4 here on the CINCOTRES, as you can see. But again, I'm not using the same cable, the stock cable rather. I'm using the same cable as I used in the ZIIGAAT and the same tips, so that I can maintain a better, let's say, balance between what I'm going to be saying. However, before I start, I just want to say something. This is a little bit of a I'm not even sure if this is a rant. Some of you that have been following me since from the beginning know that I've been around, you know, doing the reviews now for 4 years or something, and it's a little bit frustrating or demotivating sometimes to, after 4 years of consistently trying to do something that no one else does, which is no other reviewer does the sort of comparisons that I do. Sometimes these comparisons are actually to my detriment, because some of the brands do not appreciate me comparing its IEM to other IEMs. But I believe that I have to serve the community, because this is the sort of thing that I would have liked seeing done when I was starting out in the hobby. I would have liked to have seen more reviewers do a comparison of various IEMs. And again, I can understand that that's not easy because it involves a lot of money and so on and so forth, and God only knows how much money I've invested in this hobby. But it sometimes is a little bit frustrating to still hear people criticize me because I don't speak eloquently, or I don't say things in the most clear of manners, or I ramble, or I repeat myself. Well, I apologize if I do not have the gift of the word. But to all of those people, people that criticize me, because I accept criticisms when they are positive, I accept criticisms when they are with a positive intention behind them. But for all those people that criticize me in that manner, first of all, I can tell you this much: do it better. If you think that I'm not doing a good job, do it better. Go out there, spend the money that I've spent, and do it better. End of story. Okay? If you don't have anything good to say, then don't say anything. Just keep quiet. Keep it to yourselves. That's as simple as that. If, however, you do have something positive and constructive that will make me improve as a reviewer, and will make me improve and bring you better content, then I'm all for it. But to come and give me criticisms because well, I apologize if my reviews sometimes are 20, 30, 40 minutes long. But hey, this is the way I am. Again, I don't know why the criticism, because I've seen other reviewers. I mean, ZIIGAAT does reviews of the same length. He doesn't have timestamps either, and I always get criticized why I don't have timestamps. Why? People don't criticize him because he's got, what, 200,000 followers, and because he's a big shot? Is that it? I question. It's a valid question, and that leads me again to leads me also to the second part, which is I struggle really hard to try and do all of this. I've got my own life, I've got my own problems like everybody else. And it's a little bit demotivating. And if it wasn't for the few people that really truly appreciate my work, and that sometimes are kind enough to actually, you know, give me a little bit of a word of incentivation, I would have really honestly given up. Because after all this time, I've got, what, 5,000 followers? I mean, I think it's quite evident that I don't do this for the money right now. By now, I think that's more than obvious, you know. And even if I was doing it for the money, it would still be legitimate, because that's what the other big reviewers say. It's legitimate that they make their money, so I guess it's legitimate that I would also make some money. But I don't do this for the money. I do it for the true passion. And I would like to see 15, 20, 30, 40,000 followers. I would like to see more people actually appreciating what I do, instead of seeing only 5,000. And I'm grateful for those 5,000, mind you. I am truly grateful for those people that do appreciate my work and that do sometimes give me those words of encouragement. But it is a little bit frustrating after 4 years to see other reviewers that started at the same time now be on the limelight and they are the business. Why? Because they do better editing in their videos, because they do better sound in their videos, because they this or that. Guys, I think I've proven myself more than enough. More than enough. Fair enough, we're not here to please everybody and to be satisfactory to everybody, and we don't all have to like everybody, but I think I've proven myself as a more than capable person to bring solid enough reviews, solid enough opinions to this community, and to be capable of showing you another perspective, my perspective of what I think is a good or bad sound. And I think I can count from my hands the number of times that I've had people say that what I recommended was wrong. I think I can count, because the majority of times I do get very nice messages from people congratulating me, saying, hey, Across Tony, thank you for the rec. It was a really nice rec. Really appreciate it. That's and then the final thing is, it's actually anyway, you know what? Let's leave the rant here and let's carry on with what is the most important thing, which is talking about the CINCOTRES. Anyway. I used, for the sake of this review, I used my Q15, and I used mainly the TP50 and the Yuki with the NX7. These two were the ones that got the most listening time, to be honest. I've always liked the Yuki. You guys know that I like the Yuki. I'm very appreciative of the sort of sound that the Yuki can give, as I am of the Cayenne RU7. But you know what? I didn't even connect the RU7 this time. I also like the M15. I didn't even connect the M15 this time. Why? Because the sound that I get from the Yuki and the sound that I get from the TP50 are spot on. And there's a reason why I guess these two are somewhat hidden gems. More so even the TP50 than the Yuki, because the TP50, although it has a part of the circuitry similar to the Yuki, which is it uses the 43198 DAC, the Yuki then uses discrete output stage, while this uses a 6863 chip for the output stage. But what this has that the Yuki doesn't have is this menu then that will allow you then to adjust a few things, balance and the filters that you want to use and so on and so forth. And the truth is, those things actually do add a little bit extra spice and do slightly make the experience more versatile. Does it make it overall substantially better than the Yuki? Honestly, no, not really. It just makes it more versatile, and that allows for maybe each one of us to adjust things in a manner which kind of suits them better. And I think that then ultimately will lead to a better overall experience, and an experience where someone will say, oh, I like more the TP50 connected up with the ZIIGAAT or the CINCOTRES than with the Yuki connected up to those. That's the sort of thing. Now, I use that as sources, these two as the sources, like I said. In terms of the IEMs that I selected a nice array of IEMs, in the sense that I went and fetched some things which are kind of in the forgotten drawer. People don't talk about them. But when I listened to the CINCOTRES and when I listened to the ZIIGAAT, I was reminded to a certain extent by these IEMs. And because I was reminded of these IEMs, I went and fetched them. I remeasured them. And fair enough, the measurements were more or less very similar. And that's why the similarity in the sound. And what are these IEMs? Well, I've got two versions of the T800, an earlier launch version and a later release version. This later release version has got less treble than the earlier release version. And this particular unit here, and I've actually gone to the trouble of getting now a third unit to just see if the tuning remains itself like this, or if it remains closer to the first one. So was this just by chance, by the difference that existed, was it just a fluke tuning difference, or is it that they actually did a slight retune, like they many times do in HiFi? There's a lot of silent reviews that people do not know about. So the T800 from AudioSense. I got the BGVP NS10 here, which again is another IEM that many people don't even give it a second chance, and it is way better than what you think. The variations, I brought it out because it has got a very similar curve to the CINCOTRES, although more energetic in specific areas, and afterwards when I show you the graphs you'll understand. And also because I heard quite a few people commenting that the CINCOTRES was perhaps even a better version of the variations. that's something that we'll discuss further. The DOS-CINCO, obviously, so that we can kind of see where both of them are. Then I've got here the IVipQ V12, which is another IM that hasn't been getting much attention, and it is a fantastic IM. I mean, be it the V12, be it the V11, which is the all BA, 8 BAs by the way, those two IMs are absolutely fantastic, really, really good. And as for the V13, which is their 2+2, that's basically a QE years Forteza. Sorry, not Forteza, the Quartet. It's basically the same thing as the Quartet. It graphs the same, it sounds the same. That's it. I've got here the Full Performer 8, and I've got here as well the Blessing 2, not the Dusk, the original Blessing 2. Again, why? Because this particular set here, that I've got, it's got more bass than I've seen in all of the other Blessings that I've seen graphs on. So I can only base my opinion on the Blessing, on this, the Blessing 2, this particular unit that I have here, sounds, I guess, the same as a Blessing 2 Dusk. Anyway, these are the IMs I selected. CINCOTRES, let's get into it. The shell, the overall fit, the quality of the shell, faultless. You can't really mention, say anything about it. It's well built. It fits beautifully. I'm using the 07 tips, which allow the medium size, which allow a nice deep fit. It seals nicely. Beautiful. The cable is an IVipQ cable, which is exactly the same cable as the cable that I'm using in the DOS-CINCO, which is a cable from ZIIGAAT, the 41T. The cable itself is exactly the same. It's the same cable. It measures the same. The difference is only in the accessories. So that's it. Physically, the IM is perfect. It's perfect in my books. Well built, fits nicely. Looks solid, looks the part. Nice faceplate design. I like I've mentioned, I like, and I would see this. I would really like to see more companies do this. The fact that they've mentioned the serial number and the name of the IM. I think those are, it's little details like this that might seem or whatever, but they make the difference. They are important. Okay, so sound. This is more about like a neutralish warm presentation that has specific areas being emphasized ever so subtly. The bass is not, at least of my unit, is not exactly a gliding bass like I've seen in some other graphs for the CINCOTRES. It's got a glide, but it's got a ever so slight tuck as well. So it's gliding, and then all of a sudden it just tucks at around the 200 to 300 area. It just tucks there and goes into the mids nicely. That obviously the tuck in the DOS-CINCO is more noticeable, and the DOS-CINCO does have more energy as well in the bass. So I would say this is not really 100% a gliding bass, as for example it is on the T800, or as it is on the Performer 8, or as it is even to a certain extent, or not to a certain extent, or as it is as well in the Blessing 2. These have got more of that gliding sort of bass as well. The NS10 follows the same premise. Mids, nicely executed. Peaks, the pinna gain peaks at about 3K. Nice. I mean, it's very nicely done. No real points that up to now that you can call out as being a problem or anything. And then it starts decaying into the upper mids and treble ever so slightly. Overall, that presentation is smooth. It's a more relaxed presentation than the one you hear on the DOS-CINCO. The DOS-CINCO, because of that extra bass, it's a little bit more energetic, and because of the extra amount of energy that it also has after the initial pinna gain, it also sounds a little bit brighter, a little bit more detail up top in the upper mids and treble. I also mentioned when I did the DOS-CINCO that if there was still a little bit more detail, I wouldn't complain. So by default, that's the only area here where I would say that I would like a little bit more detail is in the upper mids and treble. But now, mind you, and the same thing applies to the DOS-CINCO, the detail that is present here is more than enough, and probably the majority of you will be more than satisfied. I've said it countless times. I'm going deaf. I'm 52 years old, so my hearing is not what it used to be. It's still capable enough, but this is what I heard. What I heard is that in terms of its detail up top, it's adequate, it's fine. I can hear all the twinklies and sparklies that I like. I can't really complain. let's see here, for example, be it Unconditional from Supernova, or be it House of Groove from Eugene Groove, or be it Analog from Soul Persona. All these sounds, you know, all these songs sounded perfect. They've got loads of detail and no issues there, no issues. A song like Deeper, for example, from Pete Velasco, the bass on here is phenomenal on the CINCOTRES, as it is, by the way, on the Dos Cinco. Which of the two will probably sound a little bit more correct with this particular song? Probably this will be the more correct one, the CINCOTRES. The Dos Cinco might come across as being just slightly more, let's say, colored. But you know what? If you ask me, oh, so Tony, which one do you choose? Do you prefer the Dos Cinco or the CINCOTRES? They are both very good. You know, I can't really say I prefer that one or I prefer this one. You know, they really sound good. That's the reality. That one there, like I mentioned in my review, the Dos Cinco, maybe for, you know, for EDM, if that's what you like listening to a lot more, is EDM and hip hop, because it's got that extra bass, you might prefer that. But if you want an overall more balanced presentation, this might be the better choice, the wiser option. Okay, as well, if you maybe are a person that likes rock, I would say personally that this one would do rock, and the little bit of rock that I listen to, for example, and I can give you some examples of what exactly I listen to. So let's say, yeah, Carry On the Wayward Son from Kansas, or you know, or Take It Easy by the Eagles, The Chain from Fleetwood Mac. I actually prefer it ever so slightly here than on the Dos Cinco. That was just me, but I mean, the difference is very, very minor. It could have just been down to the mood I was in, to be honest. Anyway, like I said, the Dos Cinco, I would say, is a better IM if you're going to listen to more energetic genres. This, I would say, is a better IM if you want to listen to more jazz, perhaps a little bit more classical, and some rock. I would say that this would be ultimately the better, because the fact it's smoother, you know, some of the passages in some of the rock songs of the guitars and so on and so forth might not sound as aggressive, unless you do like that. That's just my take on it. Okay, so sonically, the CINCOTRES, in my opinion, is fine. There's nothing I can fault it with. You know, the only real thing, like I mentioned, is a little bit more detail up top. But again, not even that is offensive. All right. So there. Now, compared the CINCOTRES with the Dos Cinco. I've already done the comparison. I've just mentioned they are both very good. They both sound amazing. It's just a question of what genres of music do you pen towards more. You know, and that will be the deciding factor. Otherwise, they both sound amazing. Comparing it now with what I have here, the CINCOTRES, compared with the audio sets, I get very much the same sort of bass. The T800, you know, people forget about it a lot and forgotten about it a lot. And also, I guess maybe because of the first series was a lot more brighter sounding, had a lot of upper mids and treble energy. The T800 has got some of the best BA bass that I've heard. Simple. It's an all Knowles implementation, and the bass that they've been able to get out of the 31618 is very, very good. It's deep, it's got weight, it at times almost even has that kind of tactile feel to it. Okay, it gives you that tactility that you find lacking in a lot of BA applications. Why? Because yes, the bass is quick, it's clean, it's detailed, but it doesn't have that tactility that you find on a DD application. And on the T800, I got a lot of that vibe going. So you could say that the CINCOTRES is a T800 using obviously 2 DDs instead of the BAs here. And the CINCOTRES is more detailed up top, at least compared with this particular unit that I have here. Compared to the other unit, no, the other unit is more detailed. But compared with this unit, which is a unit that I bought in 2022, late 2022, while the other one was in 2020, this one has got a very similar sound signature to the CINCOTRES, only less energy in the upper mids and treble, okay? Compared to the NS10. NS10 is, like I mentioned earlier, an IM that hasn't gotten a lot of attention or kind of went by very, very under the radar. And I guess to a certain extent that's BGVP's fault. They don't really, I don't know, they've got a different philosophy when it comes to choosing reviewers to do their reviews for their IEMs, or they choose the people that they think are capable enough. I don't know. They've just got a different a very different company philosophy when it comes to these things. The real difference, obviously, that stands out is that the mids here are more forward than they are in the CINCOTRES. Otherwise, at most of the volume level, up to about 50%, which is already getting pretty loud, they sounded very similar. My playlist on the NS10 and the CINCOTRES sounded very, very similar. Only when I then started pushing it did the NS10 start losing slowly its, I would say, its capabilities, in the sense that the scaling is not done as nice as it is on the CINCOTRES. If there's one thing that, well, both the DOS5 and the CINCOTRES do, in my opinion, is they scale very well. I would even say that the CINCOTRES perhaps scales slightly better than the DOS5, precisely because of the fact that it's more balanced out in its overall tuning. It's smoother. Okay. So this, when you start pushing the volume, that early pinna gain that it has starts showing itself, and it becomes a little bit fatiguing after a while, because it's a little bit too forward and too pushed. So you become a little bit tired of it after a while. But otherwise, you know what, the NS10 for its $200, and you could have picked this up now for as low as $150 during the spring sales. This is a very competent little IM. It actually is very competent. 2 DDs, 8 BAs. They've got some nice BAs in there, some Sonyans and some Knolls. Metal built, you know, it's got the adjustable nozzles as well for you to tune the sound. It's not a bad IM. It really isn't a bad IM. And compared to some of the stuff up to that $200 price bracket, it actually fares a lot better than what many of you will probably think. Okay, but compared to the CINCOTRES does come out in front ever so slightly. Compared to the variations is a better IEM in my opinion. And again, this is based on what I have, my variations, how this sounds and how the CINCOTRES sounds. This sounds better. Is it a monumental difference? No, it isn't a monumental difference. But what you do notice is that the balance of sound that they have struck there makes you not feel that there's mid-bass energy missing. Something that on the variations, on specific songs, on certain songs, you do notice there's a little bit of mid-bass impact that is missing, because the sub-bass focus is quite pronounced, more pronounced than it is on there. Otherwise, in terms of the mids and the treble, they graph very similarly and they sound very similarly, and the overall balance is actually quite similar. This just sounds cleaner, more detailed. I mean, it does have ESTs afterwards. It just sounds more polished overall. So I don't agree with what some people mentioned, that the CINCOTRES is better than this. No, I don't agree. But I will say that the CINCOTRES is a very viable alternative to the variations if you do not have the $480 that this costs. I mean, after all, $240 is half the price, and at half the price, you could then say yes, it's kind of a mini variations. Okay, but this is a better IM. DOS5, I've mentioned it. Let's go here to this end here. Let's start here with the Blessing. The Blessing 2, well, this particular Blessing 2 and the CINCOTRES, what I can say is mids and treble, this comes out on top. Is it by much? No, not by much. This comes out on top. Just a little bit more detailed, just a little bit more polished. In terms of the bass, hey, you got two drivers there. You got a single driver here. This was supposed to be tuned to be a very neutralish kind of sounding bass. That there has got a pronounced bass by comparison. The bass there is better. The bass, the mid bass, it's better there in the CINCOTRES. So overall, I would say the CINCOTRES is the more sensible choice. It's the more versatile choice. It's the one that will play more music better. While this one, maybe the Blessing 2 will maybe be more satisfactory for those that are not, let's say, avid fans of a lot of bass, while on the CINCOTRES you have to like your bass, let's put it that way. And this might be the most viable alternative if you're like really vocal focused and so on, but the CINCOTRES is a better IM than the Blessing 2. Okay, compared to the Performer 8, the thing that's very evident straight away is that the bass on here is nowhere near as the bass there in terms of quantity. Quality-wise, similar, but it's, you know, you don't have to push the volume too much to straight away see that this kind of runs out of steam as compared to the CINCOTRES. As for the rest of the presentation, the mids, upper mids, and treble, this is better. I mean, after all, we do have 7 BAs here. There we've only got 3, so you know, I guess the numbers game here did play its role, and it is better. Now, which is better of the two IEMs? Is it the Performer 8 or is it the CINCOTRES? Well, this is $360, $350. That's $240, $250 more or less. There is, let's say, $100 price difference here. They are tailored, in my opinion, although they have a similar style of tuning. They are tailored towards different crowds of people. So I would say that perhaps the CINCOTRES will be the most satisfactory for the majority of people. The majority of people will prefer the CINCOTRES because of its higher versatility. While this one is more audiophile correct, that one there will be more user-friendly correct. Okay, so it's not really a question of which is better or worse. Again, it's which is your preferred style. As for the V11, sorry, the V12 from IVipQ, this has got 2 DDs and 6 BAs. The 2 DDs is a 10 and a 6, and then we got 6 BAs. The sound here again is very similar to the oh my god, my apologies, to the CINCOTRES. Very similar. Nicely done bass, nicely done mids, treble more relaxed than on the CINCOTRES. The CINCOTRES surprisingly has got a little bit more upper mids and treble than the V12. But they have a very similar type of sound, and the V12 does scale very well. So when you start cranking the volume, it does come alive quite nicely. You know, it picks up a lot of energy, a lot of detail, which at lower volumes it will sound comparatively, you know, slightly more dead, slightly more tamed down. Let's put it that way. For the $220 roughly that it costs, I think this is a fantastic buy. And honestly, this is a difficult one for me to choose because the price is very similar, and the sonic differences that exist between the two of them are so minor. Just like I said, just more. It's not so much the bass, although there's slightly more bass there, and there's also slightly more upper mids and treble, like I mentioned. But the differences are not so significant or not so noticeable for the majority of the music that I listen to, and the way that they both scale so well, it makes this one of the toughest choices for me to say, oh, this is better, that is worse. Okay, it's very nicely done. It's IM, very nicely done. IM comes with a nice cable. This is actually not the stock cable that it comes with, but it's got a really nice stock cable, and IVipQ they would put a nice cable, and with the wide boards, especially with these BGVP wide boards, is which I recommend. That this IM will definitely surprise. So just a quick recap before I show you the graphs. T800 it's a let's say the CINCOTRES is a DD version of the T800 with better executed upper mids and treble. Okay, NS10, nice IEM, but its forwardness in the initial part of the mids into the upper mids, that transition there is what ultimately dictates that the CINCOTRES comes out on top. Variations, similarly kind of tune, but the variations is better. DOS Cinco compared to the CINCOTRES, it's just a slightly different style of tuning, more bass, more treble. So this, you could say, kind of sounds more V-ish, while this is more neutral-ish, let's put it that way. Compared to the V12, similar tuning. I've already mentioned the differences in terms of the sound. Hard one to choose here between the two of them, because this is, after all, not more or less at the same price. Compared to the Performer 8, again, more or less the same situation here as with the DOS Cinco. Its tuning style is similar on graph, but what you listen to is very different. So it's what you prefer. You want neutralish but fun and energetic, and ultimately more versatile, or very audiophile and a little bit more slightly genre specific. And then finally, compared with the Blessing 2, I mean, the Blessing 2 does have better mids and treble, but what it beats in terms of mids and treble, the CINCOTRES, it doesn't make up for it in terms of the bass. And again, I'm basing all of what I just mentioned with regards to this particular unit, because somehow I get the feeling that the majority of the units that are out there will not be like this one. Well, they will not have the bass that this one has, and as thus, If they don't have the bass of this one, then the disparity will even be bigger, and the CINCOTRES is the one that makes more sense. As compared to my specific unit of the Blessing 2, I still prefer the CINCOTRES. I still think the CINCOTRES is a more interesting IM overall. And again, it does cost less $50. So overall, nicely done IM. I mean, both of these, the DOS Cinco and the CINCOTRES, are very well executed. I wasn't a particularly big fan of the Nuo. The Chino was fine, but these two, I have to say, top marks. You know, I highly recommend these two. At least have a listen to them if you don't want to go straight away and buy them. In terms of the sources, like I said, I preferred this neutrality of the sound that something like the 43198 offers, both the EPZ, the TP50, and the Yuki. I preferred that kind of neutralish presentation. I briefly heard the M15, and it sounded fine. There was nothing wrong. I'm not gonna say, oh no, it sounded fine, but I just felt that the timbre and the tonality, which is something which I appreciate a lot, and it's obviously very subjective, it just sounded nicer with these two. With the Q15, I'm not even going to go there, because it sounded, I mean, the Q15 with maybe an exception here or there, and even those exceptions are very minor, this thing basically makes any IM that I have sound fantastic, so let's not bother. Let me show you another graphs and wrap it up. Okay, let's talk now about the graphs here for the CINCOTRES. This is the graph of the CINCOTRES, as you can see, and the reason why I was mentioning earlier that I don't exactly agree with the fact that this is kind of a gliding bass, it's because you can see a slight tuck here. Fair enough, when compared with the DOS Cinco, and I've normalized everything at 500 Hertz. Sorry, not the DOS. This is not the DOS Cinco. This is the DOS Cinco. You can notice perhaps a more significant tuck, because you've also got a lot more energy here between 20 and 100 Hertz. But overall, it's more, the difference that I noticed between the DOS Cinco and the CINCOTRES is more difference of energy level on the bass than anything else. Then yes, on the DOS Cinco you see a smoother pina, while on the CINCOTRES you have a more abrupt kind of pina, but then drops off, while the DOS Cinco it maintains itself a little bit more energetic across the upper mids and the treble. So there's a little bit more detail, a little bit more twinklies and sparklies, and I mean, that's it. That's basically those two. Compared with the variations, you can see that the CINCOTRES kind of shares very much that same sort of vibe in terms of how the bass is, where it tucks in, and then where the pin again begins, where it peaks, and then how it drops. So I can understand this, the similarity or the comparison that was made, but the overall balance of sound, at least for me, it's just more polished in the variations. Fair enough. I will say that because of the tightness in terms of the width with which the response of the CINCOTRES is done, I mean, everything sits within a window of 7 dBs roughly. That tightness does allow for this area of the mid bass to be a little bit more pronounced. Not pronounced in the sense of there's a lot of it, no, it just sounds more balanced with regards to what you have in the sub bass. When you compare it with, for example, the variations, you will notice that this area here is a little bit more leaner because of the monstrous amounts of sub bass that you have. Interesting fact here is that the DOS Cinco kind of sits in between the two of them in terms of the bass. So just an interesting thing that I would, just a little side note. Now, let's compare it then with the rest of the IMs. Compared with the Blessing 2, my Blessing 2, you can understand why I was a little bit more, it's a difficult one to judge. Because my Blessing 2 seems to have a lot more bass than what the majority of the other Blessing 2s have. Now, having this here does not mean that it's got more bass than the CINCOTRES. No way. The CINCOTRES has got significantly more bass. By contrast, then, the upper mids and treble of the Blessing 2 are more detailed. The balance that is struck is quite good, but the balance that is struck on the CINCOTRES is just better. And be it my Blessing 2 or be it the let's say the more normal Blessing 2s out there, the CINCOTRES is a better IEM. Okay, so that's that one out of the way. The next one is the IVipQ V12, and as you can see, they are very similar in terms of the bass, the way that it tucks in, and then how the pin again is done. There's a lot of similarities. However, for a reason which I can't really put my finger on it, the CINCOTRES always comes across as a little bit more detailed in the upper mids and treble than does the IVipQ. And it also comes across as having just ever so slightly a little bit more of sub bass. But the differences honestly are very, very minor. I wouldn't even, if I was to try and condense a little bit more that difference, I would say that it's not so much in the bass where you see the difference, because they both scale extremely well. Excuse me. It's more in the upper mids and treble that you notice that at lower volumes the V12 sounds more laid back, more relaxed, and then once you start giving it a little bit of volume, it comes alive, and then when it comes alive, then yes, then they are on equal footing. But at lower volumes or more normal listening volumes, I would say up to 30-40%, the CINCOTRES does come across as being more detailed. So I've shown you the blessing, I've shown you this the V12, I've shown you the Dos Cinco, the variations, I've shown you the Dos Cinco. Let's show you now the Performer 8. This is the Performer 8. This is, in my opinion, a gliding style of bass. You see, very, very, it just glides and glides, then in the mids, and it just glides. Energy levels are definitely the CINCOTRES comes out on top. Quality of the bass, smoothness of the bass, smoothness of that presentation when it goes into the mids, upper mids and treble, detail, Performer 8 unquestionably. Technically as well, the Performer 8 better IEM. So I guess, you know, if you are more technically inclined, more audiophile inclined, the Performer 8 definitely. If you want the more fun and engaging, then fine. Okay, Performer, you know, the Performer 8 maybe might not be the ideal, and the CINCOTRES will make the most sense. All right, that's that. That's that. Now, the BGVP NS10. Again, like I said, an IEM that has gone very much under the radar. The bass is not what you see here, one or the other. Again, very gliding style of bass. Don't forget, this bass curve here of the CINCOTRES is 2 drivers, you know, so mustn't forget that. While the other one is a single 8. Well, it's actually a dual diaphragm 8mm. What you notice is that at lower volumes you don't notice so much this forwardness here of the mids into the upper mids of the NS10. It's actually not up there where you see the difference. It's here, and this is the area that when you start pushing the volume, it then showcases a lack of scaling ability, which is as competent as on the CINCOTRES. So the CINCOTRES comes out on top and beats the NS10 basically because it scales better, and because it scales better, this area here doesn't push itself out too much and doesn't become, or doesn't reach a point where it can possibly become fatiguing. That's that. And let me see if I've got anything missing. Oh yeah, and finally the T800. This is the T800. Again, normalized at 500 Hertz. It's got a lot of bass. Okay, it's BA bass, so it's not as much as the difference as you see here, but there is, you notice a little bit of difference, and it's more of a timbre and tonality difference than necessarily quantity, because if there's one thing that T800 doesn't lack is quantity. It's got loads and loads of bass. The mids for the most part are very equal. It's then here in this area of the treble where you notice that the CINCOTRES outdoes the T800. There's just a little bit more detail there. The T800, I would say, also suffers a little bit of the same issue as the V12, which is when you start increasing the volume, it's when it really comes alive, and then that difference maybe starts becoming a little bit less noticeable. But at lower volumes, you notice that the CINCOTRES is more detailed and has got more information in the upper registers. And that's that, guys. I hope I was able to explain things well, give you a clear picture of the CINCOTRES. Well, all that's left to say is like and subscribe, and don't mind the rant. That's who I am. I speak my mind and I say my mind. All right, you guys have a nice one. Take care. Bye.